The great hall of planet Zelverus was filled with glowing lights and floating banners. The royal court was packed. Nobles from across the stars had gathered to witness something they believed would be a joke, a human trying to join the warrior. Trials. 3 tall alien sisters stood near the throne. They were beautiful and powerful. Princess Zayla, the oldest, had glowing red eyes and sharp cheekbones. She was known for her pride. Tyrus, the middle sister, stood with her arms crossed. Her silver armor gleamed and her face showed no emotion. The youngest Mira had softer features and curious blue skin, but even she smirked that day. "Bring in the human," the royal guard announced. A door opened. A human stepped forward. His name was Kai. He wore no armor, only a simple traveler's coat. He had short black hair, calm eyes, and a strong walk. But compared to the alien warriors, he looked small. Weak. The court burst into laughter. "This is a mistake," Zayla whispered loudly. "He should be sweeping floors, not standing here," Tyrus said coldly. "I've seen stronger bones in soup." Even Mira, trying not to smile, said, "Does he even know how to fight?" Kai said nothing. He looked at the 3 sisters. Then, slowly he pulled something from his coat. It was a large, strange object covered in cloth. He dropped it on the marble floor in front of the throne. The sound echoed. When the cloth fell away, the crowd gasped. It was the severed head of a black skull, beast, one of the most dangerous monsters in the fire deserts. Even elite alien soldiers avoided it. The mouth of the beast was still open, showing sharp crystal fangs. Blood dripped slowly onto the floor. The laughter stopped. Kai finally spoke. His voice was quiet, but steady. "This attacked your border, village. No one helped, so I did." The alien king leaned forward in his massive throne. His golden crown sparkled. "You killed this alone?" the king asked. Kai nodded once. Zayla's face turned pale. Tyrus narrowed her eyes. Mira's mouth opened slightly, shocked. "But how?" someone in the crowd whispered. Kai looked at the sisters. "You laugh at me because I'm human, but strength doesn't come from size. It comes from purpose." The king stood up. "Kai of Earth," the king said, his voice echoing, "you will enter the 7 trials. If you succeed, your reward will not only be honor, it will be the right to stand beside my daughters." The crowd gasped again. Zayla stepped forward quickly. "Father, this is madness." "Silence," the king commanded. "He has earned the right to try." Kai turned to leave but paused near the sisters. He looked at Zayla and said, "You will not have to laugh much longer." Then he walked away. The sisters watched him go, confused, surprised, and maybe a little afraid. The night sky above the alien palace turned deep violet. Twin moons rose slowly. Inside a crystal chamber, Kai rested. The servants had prepared soft cushions and warm soup for him. It looked peaceful, but nothing about the trials was meant to be peaceful. As Kai closed his eyes, a sudden hiss echoed around him. His bed sank like quicksand. Before he could move, the floor opened beneath him, and he fell. He hit the ground hard in a dark jungle. His shoulder ached, but he stood quickly. Glowing vines curled around trees. The air smelled strange. He was not alone. A voice echoed from the sky. Trial 1. Survive the night. No weapons. No help. Kai looked down. His coat and bag were gone. Even his boots had been replaced with thin alien sandals. "They want to break me," he muttered. "Let them try." Deep in the shadows, eyes watched him. Creatures of fur and fangs moved silently between trees. He heard growls and strange whistles. His breath was calm, but his mind raced. Meanwhile, in a secret viewing room in the palace, the 3 sisters watched through a floating screen. Other nobles gathered behind them, whispering. "This is where he fails," Zayla said confidently. "Humans aren't made for this world." Tyrus crossed her arms. "If he cries for help, we end it." Mira stayed silent. Her eyes were fixed. On the screen, back in the jungle, Kai picked up a broken branch. Not as a weapon, but as a tool. He started gathering vines, stones, and dry leaves. He built a small fire, careful not to attract attention. A beast approached. its body low to the ground, glowing with green patterns. It was fast. Kai didn't run. Instead, he slowly knelt down and tossed some dried fruit he had saved earlier. The creature stopped, sniffed, then took the food and backed away into the trees. On the screen, Mira's eyes widened. "He didn't fight," she whispered. "He fed it," Zayla scoffed. "Foolish. Kindness doesn't win trials." Kai built a shelter from branches and leaves. The jungle howled around him, but he stayed calm. He whispered stories to himself, memories of Earth, of his village, of the family he lost. In the distance, something screamed. A young creature, a cub, was stuck in a trap made from metal teeth. Kai heard it and ran toward the sound. The cub was bleeding. It looked like a smaller version of the beast he had just fed. Kai looked around. This trap wasn't here by accident. He knelt and gently opened the metal teeth. It snapped on his hand, slicing skin, but he didn't stop. He freed the cub and bandaged its leg using cloth from his shirt. The cub limped away into the dark. Blood dripped from Kai's hand, but he smiled. "They'll expect me to kill," he said to the air. "I'll choose to save." At sunrise, the jungle disappeared. It wasn't real. It was part of a testing field. Kai now stood in a clean white chamber. The voice returned. Trial 1. Complete. Unexpected result. Humans saved the enemy cub. Interesting. Doors opened. Kai walked forward, bleeding and tired. In the viewing room, many nobles clapped in shock. Some were angry. Some were amazed. Zayla frowned. "He was supposed to fight." "What kind of warrior is this?" Mira whispered. "A different kind." Tyrus said nothing, but her eyes were now focused. The king smiled in the shadows, watching everything. Kai didn't know it yet, but the jungle had changed more than just minds. It had started something none of them were ready for. Kai sat alone inside a silver healing chamber. Alien machines hummed softly around him, repairing the cut on his hand from the first trial. He looked tired but calm. His eyes stared at the floor, not in pain, but deep in thought. The doors opened. A guard stepped in. "The second trial begins now." But instead of a jungle or test field, Kai was led to a vast arena. Thousands of aliens cheered from the stone benches. Banners waved in the wind. In the center stood a warrior statue, huge and made of crystal. Next to the statue stood Princess Zayla. "This trial is different," the announcer said. "A battle of words, not weapons. Truth against pride." Kai frowned. "Words?" Zayla stepped forward, wearing shining armor, her face full of pride. "You won the first trial with tricks and sympathy. Now let's see if you can survive a conversation." Kai nodded. "Go ahead." The rules were simple. If Zayla could make Kai admit weakness or surrender emotionally, he would fail. If Kai stood strong in truth, he would pass. It was a battle of beliefs, shown live to the entire kingdom. Zayla began. "You are small, human," she said loudly. "You are from a broken planet. You don't belong here. Admit it, you're weak." Kai didn't move. He answered calmly. "I may be small, but weakness is not in my bones, it's in giving up." The crowd murmured. Zayla narrowed her eyes. "Your people beg, run, and die easily. My sisters and I have seen the vids. What makes you think you're worthy to stand beside royalty?" Kai took a step forward. "I don't need to be worthy in your eyes. I just need to keep standing. That's how humans survive." A loud hum filled the arena. Some aliens nodded in agreement. Zayla's voice sharpened. "You helped a beast instead of killing it. Are you afraid to fight?" Kai looked around. "I don't fight to prove anything. I fight when someone else can't. That's what real warriors do." The crowd was quiet now. Even the nobles in the upper box sat straighter. Zayla's face turned, red with anger. She raised a hand and shouted, "You speak like a soft one, not a warrior. Admit it, you're not strong." Kai stepped closer and spoke clearly. "Strength without heart is just cruelty, and your pride is just a shield to hide your fear." The arena gasped. Zayla froze. For a second, just a second, her mouth opened slightly. Not from rage, but shock. No one had ever dared speak to her like that. In the royal viewing room, Tyrus crossed her arms, impressed. Mira covered her mouth. He made her flinch. Tyrus whispered, "That's new." The statue behind them began to glow. It sensed truth. The trial was nearly over. Kai looked at Zayla one last time. "You laugh at me because you're afraid of being wrong. Maybe. You're afraid I might be more than a joke." The arena fell silent. The statue's light turned gold. Trial 2. Complete. Kai passed. The crowd clapped slowly, then faster. Zayla turned her back and walked away without a word. Kai stood alone, breathing slow as the cheers grew louder. Later that evening, Zayla sat in her private garden staring into the glowing water. Tyrus entered silently. He didn't win because he was strong. Zayla muttered. "No," Tyrus replied. "He won because you let him touch something inside you." Zayla didn't answer. But in her heart, a crack had formed. The palace halls were quiet, but not empty. Long after midnight, soft voices echoed behind golden walls. The wind outside howled over the towers, but inside, another storm was forming. 2 royal servants walked quickly through the corridor, whispering, "Did you hear what happened during the second trial?" "Yes. Princess Zayla, she didn't speak for hours afterward." And now the king is watching the human more closely than ever. They passed a tall figure hiding in the shadows, Princess Mira. She had been listening. Mira's heart was heavy, with questions. Something inside her had changed since the jungle trial. She had seen many warriors in her life, loud ones, cruel ones, proud ones. But Kai, he was quiet, wounded, and still unbreakable. And maybe something more. She looked down the hallway toward the garden. Meanwhile, in the lower levels of the palace, Kai sat near a small fountain, his eyes watching the stars through the glass ceiling. He didn't sleep much. The trials were strange. Not just tests of skill, but tests of spirit. He didn't expect someone to visit. Mira stepped out of the shadows. "You're not afraid of the dark?" she asked softly. Kai smiled. "It's quieter than the crowd." She sat across from him, folding her legs like a child. "You confuse everyone here, especially my sisters." Kai tilted his head. "And you?" "I don't know yet," she admitted. They sat in silence for a while. Then she asked, "Why did you free that jungle cub? It was just a beast, a trap." Kai looked at her gently. Maybe it was. But that little creature didn't set the trap. Someone else did. It just needed help. Mira blinked. "Even if it bit you?" "Helping others is only real," he said, "when we do it without expecting kindness in return." Her heart trembled a little. Nobody spoke to her like this. Not without fear or praise or duty. In another corner of the palace, Zayla was awake, pacing in her room. Her pride stung, not because she lost, but because she didn't understand why she lost. "He is just a human," she said to her reflection in the mirror. "How can he break me with words?" Then, a knock. Tyrus entered. "There is something else you should know," she said coldly. Zayla narrowed her eyes. "What?" "The king has been reading the prophecy scroll again," Tyrus replied. "The one about the outsider who will marry one of us and unite the royal bloodline." Zayla's face went still. "You don't mean—" "Yes," Tyrus said. "The human might be the one." At the same time, deep in the secret chambers, the king sat before the scroll. It glowed faintly as he touched its surface. "From fire and dust shall come a soul unbent. Not by blood, but by choice, shall unity be born." He looked at Kai's name etched into the list of trial challengers, for the first time in years. The scroll had reacted, back in the garden. Mira stood up. "You should rest," she said, her voice quiet. Kai nodded, then stopped her. "Thank you for talking." She turned. then smiled faintly. "Thank you for making me listen." As she walked away, a servant in the shadows watched her. He pulled out a small comm device and whispered, "The youngest is starting to turn. The prophecy may come true." Then, a voice on the other end growled, "We must make sure the human doesn't reach the end of the trials." The royal throne room was empty at dawn. Golden light spilled through the crystal windows, casting long shadows across the cold floor. The alien king stood alone, his cloak trailing behind him as he stared at a giant sealed door hidden behind the throne. This door had not been opened in many years, until now. With a quiet command, the stone door slid open.
Inside was a hidden chamber filled with ancient lights, symbols, and a floating scroll, glowing with soft red fire. He stepped forward and whispered to the scroll, "The human has passed 2 trials. Is he the one?" The scroll's symbols shifted.
A single word appeared. Maybe. In another wing of the palace. Kai was guided by 2 silent guards through a quiet hallway he had never seen before. He was told the king wanted a private meeting. No trial, no challenge. Just words. He felt the walls change, not just stone, but something older, something ancient. Even the air tasted different. When he entered the king's chamber, the door locked behind him. The king stood at the edge of a balcony, looking out at the twin suns rising over the floating city. "You've come far, Kai," the king said. Kai bowed slightly. "Thank you, Your Majesty." The king turned slowly. His face was older than it looked. Tired. Heavy. "Do you know why these trials truly exist?" the king asked. Kai shook his head. "To test strength?" "No," the king said softly. "To test spirit. Strength without purpose means nothing. We've had warriors, we've had power, but never peace." Kai listened quietly. "Long ago," the king continued, "our seers wrote a prophecy. They spoke of a being who would unite the kingdom, not through blood, but through choice, not by force, but through honor." Kai frowned. "You think that's me?" The king smiled gently. "I didn't, not at first. But the scroll, our most ancient relic, reacted when your name entered the trials. And after what you did in the jungle, and with Zayla." Kai stayed silent. Something inside him stirred. "If you complete the trials," the king said, stepping closer, "you may choose to bond with one of my daughters, not as a prize, but as a partner. If they choose you back, the throne will be yours to share." Kai's eyes narrowed. "And if they don't, then you will leave with honor, and a story that will echo forever." Meanwhile, in a hidden corner of the palace, Zayla stood with Tyrus. "Father met with him alone?" Zayla whispered sharply. "Yes," Tyrus replied, and the secret scroll glowed again. "It's true. He might be the one." Zayla looked away, her fists clenched. "I mocked him, and now he might become our future king." "What will you do?" Tyrus asked. Zayla stared ahead, her eyes burning. "I'll remind him why humans don't belong here. In the garden chamber." Mira touched her chest. Her heart was confused. She had watched Kai every night since his first trial. Not because she had to, but because she wanted to. He was honest, kind, strange. He didn't bow like the others. He didn't try to impress, and somehow that made her feel seen, truly seen, for the first time in her life. A voice behind her broke her thoughts. "You like him," Tyrus said, stepping into the garden. Mira didn't deny it. "He's different," Mira whispered. Tyrus nodded. "Then prepare yourself. If the prophecy is true, everything is going to change." Back in the secret chamber, the king placed a hand on Kai's shoulder. "Do not be afraid of who you are, human," the king said. "You may not have royal blood, but you carry something deeper." Kai looked up. "What if your daughters don't want to choose me? Then you will walk away." And this kingdom will lose its only real chance for change. As Kai left the chamber, one word echoed in his mind: choice. But in the darkest tunnels below the palace, a rebel group stirred. A cloaked alien slammed his fist on the stone table. The prophecy must be stopped. If the human lives, our control, dies, another growled, then we destroy him. During the next trial, a wicked plan began to form. Above them, Kai walked unknowingly toward danger and destiny. The palace bells rang loud across the skies of Zelvaris. It was the start of the final trial. Crowds filled the arena, their voices like thunder. Nobles, warriors, and citizens from all across the stars had come to see the human's last test. Many believed he would fail. Some hoped he wouldn't. Kai stood alone in the center of the grand arena, the sun burning overhead. The king sat high on the throne above, his 3 daughters beside him. Zayla's face was unreadable. Tyrus looked focused. Mira looked worried. A voice rang out from the sky. Final trial begins now. Protect the palace from invasion. Kai's brow furrowed. Invasion? From who? He had no time to ask. Suddenly the sky darkened. Dozens of shadowy aircraft appeared in the clouds. They weren't part of the royal fleet. Their shapes were older, more dangerous. The arena lights flickered. Alarms began to blare. This isn't part of the test. The king stood up sharply. This is real. The rebels had come. Minutes earlier, in the palace's underground tunnels, a group of armored rebels moved silently. They had hacked into the trial system, using the distraction to invade the capital. Their leader, masked and scarred, gave the final order: find the human, kill him before the scroll chooses him. Back in the arena, explosions shook the ground. Kai looked around. Guards were shouting. Citizens were screaming. Fire burst near the gates. They're not testing
Me, Kai whispered. They're using me as bait.
But he didn't run. Instead, he grabbed a broken spear from a fallen guard and ran toward the palace. Inside the throne hall, the king prepared his defenses. Get my daughters to safety, he commanded. But Zayla stepped forward. No, we fight. Beside him, Tyrus nodded. We can't run from our own fate. Mira said nothing. She was already moving. Kai reached the main hall just in time to see rebels breaking through the golden doors. His body ached, his lungs burned, but his heart was steady. A rebel lunged at him with a blade. Kai ducked, disarmed the attacker, and shoved him into the wall. Another came at him from the side. Kai blocked with his arm and kicked hard. Blood spilled. He wasn't the strongest, he wasn't the fastest, but he never gave up. Suddenly, 3 lights flashed behind him. Zayla, Tyrus, Mira. They stood back to back, with Kai facing the rebels. You really came, Kai said, surprised. Zayla grinned, breathing hard. I didn't come for you, human. I came for the kingdom. But her eyes said something else. Together, they fought. Zayla's strikes were sharp. Tyrus defended like a shield. Mira used speed and precision. Kai stood in the middle, moving when needed, protecting when it mattered. A rebel aimed a blaster at Mira. Kai leapt forward, taking the shot in his shoulder. He collapsed. Kai, Mira screamed. He gasped, blinking through the pain. I'm not done yet. The rebels began to retreat as royal forces arrived. The battle ended. Silence fell. The king entered, stepping over broken stone and shattered glass. He looked at Kai, still on his knees, bleeding but alive. You have completed the final trial, the king said, his voice deep and emotional. But this was not a test, Kai said softly. This was war, and you fought with the heart of a king, the king replied. The scroll appeared above them, floating on its own. It glowed with golden fire. New words appeared in the air, chosen not by force, but by fire, by pain, by love. The king turned to his daughters. Now, it is your choice. Zayla looked at Kai. Her pride, once thick like armor, was now cracked. She stepped forward slowly and said, You made me see myself. Not many dare to do that. I mocked you. But today, you saved me. Tyrus nodded. You earned our respect, not through power but through sacrifice. Then Mira walked to him. She knelt and gently touched his wounded shoulder. I choose him, she whispered. The scroll glowed brighter. The choice was made. Above, the broken hall, the people of Zelvaris cheered, not for a warrior, not for a king, but for a human who changed everything. Days passed since the final battle. The palace was being repaired. Fires had cooled. The rebels were captured or gone. The people of Zelvaris whispered a new name in the markets, in the sky ports, even in the temples. Kai, the human who saved the crown, healed but still sore. Kai stood near a balcony high above the capital. The wind brushed his face gently. Below, thousands gathered in the royal square. Alien flags fluttered, light drums played in the distance. But Kai wasn't thinking about the crowd. He was thinking about what came next. Behind him, the doors opened softly. Mira stepped into the light, her long silver robe dancing in the wind. She walked to him, holding a small crystal flower. You're not wearing your crown, she said playfully. Kai smiled. Still doesn't feel like mine. Then maybe you're the only one who deserves it. They stood quietly, looking at the city. When I came here, Kai said slowly, I only wanted to prove humans aren't weak. Mira smiled. You did much more than that. Meanwhile, in the royal hall, the scroll hovered above the throne. Its fire no longer red or gold, but white, pure, complete. The king stood before the court. Today, he announced, we honor a warrior, not of our blood, not of our world, but of our hearts. Kai entered the hall. He wore simple clothes, no armor, no sword, no jewels. Just himself. As he walked, Zayla and Tyrus watched with calm eyes. They no longer mocked him. They no longer doubted him. They respected him. The king raised his hand. The scroll has spoken. A union of peace, not power. A choice, not a command. He turned to his daughters. Zayla, she stepped forward. I do not choose him, but I honor him, and I thank him for breaking my pride. Tyrus? She nodded. I do not choose him, but I stand beside him as a warrior and a friend. Mira? Mira looked at Kai with gentle eyes. I choose him, she said clearly, not because a scroll told me to, but because my heart did. A warm silence spread across the room. The scroll glowed, releasing a wave of soft light, and then it vanished, its purpose complete. A new path was born. That evening, a quiet ceremony was held in the garden. Just the king, his daughters Kai, and a few elders. No gold rings, no loud vows, just two souls sitting side by side beneath the stars, hands joined. Kai turned to Mira. I never imagined this, Mira whispered. Neither did I. Do you ever wonder why me? Mira leaned closer. Because in a galaxy full of people trying to be kings, you were the only one who knew how to be kind. Somewhere far away, a young alien child listened to an elder telling a story. They mocked him. They tried to break him. But the human didn't fight to conquer. He fought to protect. The child's eyes widened. What happened next? The elder smiled. The king gave him a crown. But more than that, he gave him a home. Years later, the stars still shined. Peace had returned to Zelvaris. The rebels never rose again. Instead of war, there were new schools. Instead of weapons, there were gardens. At the center of it all was a statue of a human holding hands with three alien princesses. Not as ruler and servants, but as equals. Below the statue, carved in soft stone, were simple words. He was not born here, but he made this world better. Kai never called himself king, but the galaxy called him something greater. The human who changed fate not with a sword, but with a heart.